Let's Talk ADHD with Alex High. And today, Kevin Bailey. Kevin and I met at the 2022 ADHD conference during Breakfast of the Professionals Day. And from there, a friendship has blossomed. Saw him again at the next ADHD conference, and it's just a pleasure to reconnect with him whenever I do. So, Kevin, welcome.
Hi, Alex. It's awesome to be here, buddy. It was I think you were like the first person I met. You were the first person that came up to me during that conference, and that was my first conference. So I'm really happy to be here, buddy.
Yeah, it's great having you. So, Kevin, what is your ADHD story?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that question because I knew it was coming, and it's funny because I came to ADHD almost kicking and screaming in many ways, right? First of all, I don't know if you know this, but I'm an African American male, grew up in the 90s. You weren't almost allowed to have ADHD at that time, especially like in the communities that I worked with. It wasn't even in the lexicon, you know? I may have had like a general concept of ADHD, but in my head, it was kind of like young rich white kids that were kind of kicking and screaming. And so a lot of the beginning of it was me getting in trouble in school or having such promise and brilliance in certain ways, but for whatever reason, he would just drop the ball somewhere. And I would hear that story throughout my entire like early childhood. And somewhere in there, I think I learned the lesson that the way to make people love me and to make sure that I could survive in the world was just to make sure that I was perfect all of the time and did all of the work and studied. So somewhere between like middle of high school to like early adulthood, I found myself becoming just this huge nerd of knowledge, trying to understand human behavior and how to do the right things and to make sure that I was meeting my potential, if you will, right? There were certain things that absolutely fascinated me, random things like I decided to be an airline pilot. That I wanted to be an airline pilot, right? I know, right? And so I studied really hard for that. One, because I just found it very interesting, but also because I was like, well, I want to be smart and I want to be educated, and I don't want to be that little kid bouncing up in the wall, up and down the walls, and having such promise, and all of the teachers saying that you could do anything if you could just set your mind to it and focus, right? And so I studied and I learned, and I actually went to an aeronautical aviation school, and I actually got my degree in aeronautical science. Yes, that's one of the kind of stories that I have of the many things, as a lot of ADHDers have still, because I was still ADHD. Even though I was able to do that, there were many things I kind of faltered on, and I still struggled to move my way out towards actually becoming an airline pilot. Long story short, I just kind of switched to doing something different because I realized this wasn't the journey that I wanted to go on. And so I started my career just going, all right, well, I'm in my career. I'm going to work really, really hard. I'm going to get everything done. And for whatever reason, I would always drop the ball, right? And it was always the same thing. People would start, they would really like me. They'd be like, oh, this guy is charismatic. He's fun. He's what an attractive young black man. What a good guy. Let's come on in, get a job, right? And I'd go and I'd give my all and I'd be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But then I would get, I'd miss the details on this one note, right? Or I would struggle with prioritizing because I wouldn't know what to start first and second, right? And throughout, like, I would say the early 2000s was just a series of me almost doing good in a job, but like slowly being asked to leave, right? So that was the pattern throughout my early adulthood life. And when that happens over and over and over and over and over again, I don't know if I had enough overs there because that was really the pattern. You start to kind of understand, like, you know, maybe the problem isn't the job, or maybe the problem isn't like, me just having to work harder, because I keep finding myself, as hard as I work, there's still something that's going wrong. I keep struggling in some ways, right? And so that really what led me to the self-discovery of like talking to like different psychiatrists and talking to different people, because now I actually had, a little bit of money. And that is the somewhat long story towards how I discovered that I was ADHD. It wasn't because I was reckless or did something irresponsible or did things. It was just a series of me really, really trying, and then for whatever reason, dropping the ball, and me going, I can still do it, and then still dropping the ball over and over and over again, and me finally having to recognize that whatever I'm doing, something is not working. And so that's what led me onto the journey of kind of understanding that I was ADHD, right? And from there was just kind of a series of better understanding what neurodivergence was, how to like live in the world and to kind of recover from some of these perfectionist tendencies and burnout syndromes and different things that I discovered. And it was really a series of years of me kind of grabbing and understanding this. And throughout all that, eventually I came to a point where I realized that I had not only kind of gained a lot of information on neurodivergence through my own story and through me trying to just kind of work my way through, but also I now felt like I was in a fortunate space to be able to help others, maybe who have had similar experiences of like they're driven, they're working hard, and for whatever reason, they're just kind of missing the mark in some ways. For me to be able to help kind of affirm and validate that hard experience, and for me to be able to help them navigate a world that frankly isn't very designed for your brain. And that's what leads me here talking to you today, Alex.
That's awesome. So to clarify, how exactly are you helping people? Because that's beautiful.
Great
But
question. Thank you.
what steps do you take? What do you have a title you give yourself? What is that title?
That's a great question, Alex. I appreciate you asking it. So, the label of it would be a neurodivergent coach, right? An ADHD coach, an autistic coach, a learning disability coach, a lot of things, as I've learned. ADHDs are often a lot of comorbidities alongside of those things, right? And a lot of times you're dealing with a lot of similar problems and similar experiences. And as a coach, at least for what I do, I help neurodivergent minds, ADHDers, those who are autistic, particularly in the career force, professionals, help them manage the inevitable stress that they're dealing with at work, help them overcome some of the burnout, right? Recover for some of those burnout, build resilience, and help them adjust their lives so that it is designed more to tap into their natural strengths and aligned with their values. And so I take them, I'm with them on that journey. I provide kind of personal support, guidance, tools, worksheets, and different things to help them navigate those things. And it's one of the privileges that I have in my life because I get to see the transformation in real time.
That's awesome. And the word that stood out to me as you were describing all of that is design.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the world isn't built for the people you work with. It's not built for me. It's not built for you because we have different brains, unique, wonderful brains, but the world isn't built for our brains. So when you're designing or helping someone design their life, what are those key aspects that you want to include in a good life design?
What a great question, Alex. Thank you for, I swear, I want to give you your $20 at the end of this because I feel like you're asking me all the questions that I want you to. Yes. So you're absolutely right. First, I do love the word design because design has more of a shaping your environment space, as opposed to sometimes the word like plan or goal. Frankly, for a lot of ADHDers can feel very triggering because, it's only like, I have a goal and then I fail that goal. And I have a plan and then I don't do that plan, right? But designing is more about molding your experience, your environment to better fit your needs and navigate the world. And to do that, to build those shaped things, it really comes down to, I would say, three main components, I think, for a really great, well-designed neurodivergent life. The first, and perhaps even most important, is the self-discovery for understanding and getting clear on what your core values are. Right? Now, we use the term values, I think, most people, when they get to adult, they've probably done some kind of value assessment or thing, right? They've heard the term value and that can feel very loose, right? Integrity or, trust, or these like broad terms, right? So I like to get really practical with what I'm saying, but values, right? Values in your terms is really, who are you at your absolute best, and what do you just is almost a part of you, or just a deeply held belief that you have, right? That when it's not present, usually something is really wrong with whatever's going on, right? You can feel it, even if you don't completely understand it in the moment. You can feel when a value is either there or not there, right? Like Alex, one of the reasons that you and me, instantly gelled, right, is because when I am hanging out and experience with you, you make me feel one of my core values of empathy and being open and honest, right? Because you're very transparent, and I feel very safe to be able to like share some of these things, right? If that value wasn't there, I would feel it, right? And so part of the work is being able to understand what are my real core values, not just some random sheet that you fill in going, yeah, I like learning, so learning is a value, and I like courage. So courage, it's like, no, when I think about the absolute best moments in my life, what was there and what was not, right? So values, right? Second, similar is your strengths, your things that you are just naturally good at, right? We all have things that, traits that we have that just for whatever reason, right? They just work, right? They work. They help you kind of move and navigate, right? So getting clear on what those strengths are and moving your life towards those strengths or interests, especially when it comes to ADHD, is critical, is super important to understand those strengths. And then finally, it's understanding your essentially your nervous system, right? The ADHD nervous system, or the neurodivergent nervous system, because there are things, part of accepting, I believe, and kind of navigating a place that works with your brain instead of against it. I saw that in your blog, which I absolutely love, right? Part of doing that is educating yourself on how your brain and your nervous system actually works, right? What actually stimulates your brain to move forward and do things, right? What sensory things do your brain need? What environments work best for you, and what environments kind of block you, right? So I find if you can kind of navigate, understand, and kind of integrate those three components into your world, right? And to actually apply it, not just understand it, but to apply those things, you shape your world so that it's designed towards your life that you want, your neurodivergent, life that really is uniquely suited to you.
Ooh, I love that. So your values. Oh shoot! Now I can't remember it.
Okay, it's
Total
tricky, right?
ADHD moment.
It's super.
Values, uh,
Oh, we want to.
strengths, and the nervous system.
Oh, gosh, Alex, you've got this, buddy.
I've
You've
got it.
got this. I was so desperate. Like this is again like that. People, I want to help you out, Alex. I'm gonna help you.
Yeah. So those three things, and I imagine you've done this work in your own life. So
Yeah.
knowing your values, knowing your strengths, knowing your nervous system, that kind of leads me to a question that I sometimes ask on this show. And that is, what do you do because of your ADHD that is unusual?
How much time do we have?
That's why I said
Just
one
one?
thing.
Just one thing? Well, I guess that's not very unusual. Just one thing. Yeah. You said unusual. I think there are a lot of things, right? And my brain is very interesting. So I would, and some of your folks might know this or not, I'm actually an ADHDer. So I have kind of an ADHD and autistic mind. In short, it's kind of like this impulse for novelty with this like really strong impulse for structure and routine and consistency. And they're constantly sometimes feeling like they're at war and battle with each other. And so one of the things that I don't know if I would quite call it unusual, but I think that I recognize that I need for my own kind of security is to have both structure and like almost intentional creativity, novelty and throughout my day as well. So what that means kind of practically is in the morning, I have a very clear kind of regimented routine. It kind of nurtures that autistic side of me of like, I literally have a checklist and a little like timer to help me like I meditate for 20 minutes, I go for a 30-minute walk, I journal, I planned my day, right? And I have that kind of script written as if like I'm almost like a robot where it's just check, 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 right? And I do all of that. And then at the end of that, I go, okay, good. I did all that. All right, so what do I want to do now? Right. And I allow myself to go like, okay, you did the work, you did you could follow this plan, you did all of these things, but now I'm going to intentionally let that go and go, do I actually want to continue doing that, or do I want to just go somewhere different? And I allow that kind of space for just to let my brain go where it needs. Because I find if I'm just too in the weeds, if I'm too regimented, that ADHD side of me just starts to rebel and just goes, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Right. So again, rather than trying to fight against my brain, I now work with it and go, okay, so I did, I did the structure, I did those things because that's important, right? But now I'm going to open the space for that freedom. And in my mind, that works. Maybe not for everybody else's, but my mind that works. So it's almost, it seems contradictory and a little unusual, but it's very helpful for me.
Yeah, I like that. That it's almost like mental recess. Like
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it, I think.
you get that freedom, you know? Like in school, you know, you were always taught like you're in this room for this long and then you get a break. And then you're in the room for that long and then you get a break. And you ask a lot of kids with ADHD what their favorite part of the day is, and it's not school, it's the recess or lunch or those times where they just get to be free. And there's nothing wrong with structure. I have a good amount of structure in my life, but you
I would
all
almost say you need it as an
yeah,
ADHD. You
absolutely.
need some sense of that, absolutely. So
The way I like to describe it is structure helps the ADHD brain, but it's not natural to the ADHD brain.
yes, and it will fight against it. It will,
Mhm.
whether you're kind of an ADHD, that's the colloquial term for ADHD and autistic. Whether you're that or just plain ADHD, many of my clients are just ADHD. You do, I think you need that structure, but there has to be an acknowledgement that you cannot kind of just stay at that. Your brain will rebel against it because it's eventually becomes routine, boring, kind of in the box. And that really doesn't feed, I think, a lot of kind of the natural tendencies typically that most ADHDers experience. So recognizing that and not kind of beating yourself up just because, you're often a little bit of a journey and exploring something different, I think is an important component to that as well.
Yeah, and structure doesn't have to be debilitating. It should support you and build you up. So it should free you up. So that balance is really key. I had another point I wanted to make, but I forgot
Well, that was a good point right there because you're absolutely
it.
right. You don't even need to, right? Because I think you're right on, spot on there because it really is about that balance, right?
Mm.
That balance, part of when I'm working with my clients, especially when they're first starting in our sessions, it's almost always the same kind of experience. You're usually feeling overwhelmed and they want to be like, I want to work on time management, I want to work on organization, I need a system, I need to motivate myself to do the thing, right? And it's always on this kind of like, I need to do this so I don't get in trouble, right? It's the get out of troubles in some way, right? And so like they're trying to push themselves to like, you know I'm going to do it, I'm going to get this done kind of thing. And part of my work is to help facilitate some easing to that feeling of like, I must be perfect. It needs to be right because if I don't, I'm going to get fired, or I'm going to, my relationship's going to burn up, or I'm not going to get that promotion, or, I'm just, not going to do anything with my life. Right. Because those are really heavy, strong feelings. Right. And I think it's a natural, understandable reaction to feel like, well, then what I need to do is just swing all the way to the next side and just, I'm going to become a completely different person and have this perfect, routine. And that is also setting you up for unrealistic, not realistic experience, right? It's about trying to kind of hold some of that seemingly conflictatory, that's a made-up word, seemingly balanced idea of like, yes, a little structure, but it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to occasionally go off and just let your brain wander and get a little distracted, because that's also you, right? And it's about finding that balance.
Yeah, balance is a word I bring up increasingly often with my clients. Just, because like you said, I'll get clients who will come in and say, "Oh, I got to do all these things." And I'm like, "Are you having fun at all?"
Mhm.
especially when I'm working with college students. I'll get them. I was like, I got to get all this work done. Are you having fun? You're in college. Part of the college experience is having fun.
Yeah.
So I really like what you said right there.
And I think that the interesting part about that too is having fun is kind of almost like the colloquial way of how the ADHD brain works, right? It's an interest based brain. It looks for things that are novel or urgent or playful or passionate, right? And that is what feeds the stimulation that makes your brain function better and make you focus and more engaged, right? So telling yourself, or not even telling yourself, but just being in a life that doesn't feel fun or engaging is in many ways just going to make all of the things that you want, that motivation, that wanting to focus more or to like finish things more, that is kind of what will block you, right? And so it's not even just like have fun. Like, yes, we want you to have fun because you're a good person and we want you to have a flourishing life. That is probably top, right? But also it's a motivational hack. Right? It's the way you do things, right? If you think the folks, all those CEOs and things that are, have ADHD, because many of the CEOs and top elite peaks do have ADHD. If you think that they are living life where they're bored and not doing things that they enjoy, like you're mistaken, right? If they did one thing right, is they found something that they absolutely loved, right? That were super interesting and fun and playful, and they figured out how to turn that into a career, right? And so I think that is the thing when we talk about designing, that's what we're kind of thinking about.
Yeah. I like to say in my job and my work with clients and in my writing, if it's not fun, it won't get done.
Mm,
So
exactly.
speaking of fun and being done, this has been great. This has been a lot of fun. So happy you've joined us, Kevin. Kevin, final
My
thoughts on how
pleasure.
can people reach you if they want more Kevin Bailey?
Thank you so much, Alex. It's been a pleasure. People can reach me first on my website. It's gobeyondknowing.com. That's Go knowing as in knowing, gobeyondknowing.com. Yeah, I think that's it. And maybe you'll, I don't know, put something on the website.
Yeah,
If not,
we'll definitely link to your stuff. And yeah. So, Kevin, closing arguments, final thoughts,
mhm.
anything you'd like to say before we stop the recording?
I would say, I think just to your audience, if you are listening to this, one, if you're already listening to this, it's an indicator that you do care and you are trying to improve your life and that you are making steps to move forward. And I understand, I get that feeling, that constant feeling of like constantly struggling or constantly stressed, you're feeling like you're exhausted and you're burnt out. And it can be easy to fool yourself into thinking that you're the only one that's experiencing those beliefs, or that there's something inherently wrong with you. And if there's one thing that I can say is that you are not alone. You are not alone. There are many people that are experiencing things that you are experiencing, and there is support, right? There is help out there, whether it is me as a neurodivergent coach, Alex, or other folks. Get support so that you're not having to go through these things alone. You matter, my friend, and so be kind to yourself.
Hmm. What a great way to end the video. What a wonderful message. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Once again, it's Kevin Bailey. I've been Alex High. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.